Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Today we're looking at an old game from my collection. This is something I bought when it was new on the shelves. I mean, relatively new. I think I was maybe a year or two late to it. We're talking, of course, of Car Wars from Steve Jackson Games, which was one of the games they produced that came in these little boxes, little plastic boxes, you can see. Up here we have an ad for Auto Duel Quarterly, a new Car Wars magazine. Here's the back of the game. Now you could also see that the stickers on this are starting to peel off quite a bit. It is rather an old game. I probably got this thing, around about 1984, 1985. But I wanted to showcase it because, first of all, fun concept and very much of its time in the early 80s. But also, I really loved this mini game concept. So what did you get in this thing? And this, by the way, this is an expansion set. You see it just came in a plastic bag. We're not going to talk too much about that. It primarily added some little counters that you could use. It added some road sections you could use, nothing real fancy. But what you got in here were the instructions, and you can see not real extensive, although there's actually a lot of information packed into these rules, but I would call this, for the most part, pretty rules light. You got a bunch of these little counters. Now, these you had to cut out yourself. They are a little bit stiffer cardboard, and I'll also show off a little more clearly some of the ones that were meant to represent cars, motorcycles, and such in the game. Let me grab that one because I know those are bikes. Let me dump them right here. So here is, well, actually, what the heck is that? Oh, that's a little bit of debris that might be found on the track. That looks like a pickup truck. So obviously this is depicting these vehicles from above. I know one of my favorites looked like a VW Bug. This is kind of a van. There's a little weapon turret on the top of it. This is sort of a little sports car, a little compact. I think this one looks like it has maybe a little battle damage to it. Let's see if we can find one or two more. There's very nice. Now here we go. Here's a motorcycle that's actually intact. And you can see it has a sidecar on it. These are very small, so I know it's difficult to get a real clear view of them. But I wanted to give an idea of what those counters look like. So what is this game? Well, the opening paragraphs give you an idea of what you're in for. The designers, I'm reading from it now, the designers would like to acknowledge this game's debt to all of the battling autos of science fiction and spy literature. If you like this game, you ought to look at Harlan Ellison's Along the Scenic Route, Alan Dean Foster's Why Johnny Can't Speed, which is the source of the Drive Offensively motto, Roger Zelazny's Damnation Alley, Devil Car, and Last of the Wild Ones, the films Duel, Mad Max, and Death Race 2000, and every James Bond movie ever made. So that's the idea. It is set at some point in the future. And you get a little brief chronology that starts with 15 years ago, the food riots, fortress towns develop, national government fails to keep order throughout much of the U.S. 13 years ago, 11 years ago, 9 years ago, 5 years ago, Utah auto duelists form a vigilante group to counter Badlands cycle gangs. And it goes on like that. And, of course, today, Car Wars. So the game essentially pits the pits the players against one another in these armed and armored automobiles with a pretty good amount of rules to cover, what you need to do in the game. They don't go overboard on the rules, but I think they cover most of the bases. I know when I played the game way back when I was a kid, I didn't have too much trouble with it. And me and my friends were notorious, if for nothing else, than sort of half-reading rules. But we managed to do pretty good with this. Here's a section of road from, maybe I'll put it on the top of here. So it gives you an idea. You would be joining all these different pieces of paper. The grids, you notice, sync up with the size of the automobiles. This goes into how movement works in the game. Kind of go through quickly what you get in the rules. So you hear about the components, how the game begins. To start the game, turn to section 15 and pick a scenario. Then lay out roads or draw up an arena. Select your vehicles, make a record sheet for each car, and pick a counter to represent it. Put the marker counter for each vehicle at its beginning speed on the master movement chart, and put speed and handling markers on each individual vehicle record sheet. Roll for each driver's reflexes, place all the vehicles in starting positions, and go. So you lay out your thing, you roll for reflexes, and essentially you're rolling a single dice for the reflexes. If you get a 6 or better... Oh, wait. Could you get a 6 or better? Oh, yeah, because you have skill that you can add to that. If you're talking about characters that go from game to game, then you can increase the handling class of your car. If you get like a 5, it goes up by 1. If you get a 6, it goes up by 2. And that's really the only time you're going to be dealing with those reflexes. And you do re-roll them for every game. Vehicle selection. There's a stock car shopping list. Oh, that's a separate sheet, so that's why I couldn't find it in here. But this gives you a sample specification. Hot shot, luxury size, extra heavy chassis, heavy suspension, super power plant, puncture resistant tires, armor F20, R10, L10. Okay, now what does that mean? Forward, so the front of the car 20, rear 10, left 10, bottom 20, top 10. Or no, I'm sorry. That says B20. I think it should say, oh, that would be right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right 10, left 10, back 20, top 10, under 10. Carries driver only, no cargo, mounts 2 machine guns forward, linked, 2 flamethrowers behind, linked, 1 flamethrower right, 1 flamethrower left, fire extinguisher, handling class 3, acceleration 5 miles per hour, weight 6,600 pounds, costs $14,600. Hey, that's a pretty good price for a car. I mean, that's a lot cheaper than most cars you get nowadays. And there are options. So you can remove any or all flamethrowers, replace with machine guns, etc. So you notice the handling class is a 3, which would be kind of average. Acceleration 5 miles per hour. Essentially, each turn, you get to set what your car's speed is. And so with an acceleration of 5 miles per hour, you can choose to increase your speed by 5 miles per hour, but no more than that. There's different rules for reducing speed. I think you could safely reduce speed by 20 miles per hour per turn. If you go more than that, you have to make a maneuver roll to make sure you don't lose control of the car and have some kind of an accident. And here you can see what the sort of character sheet for the car looks like with the different armor ratings and showing where damage has been taken. So the movements, again, it's by this grid. Each inch represents 15 feet. The number of times a vehicle moves each turn is governed by its speed, as shown by the X marks on the movement chart. And I know some, maybe younger people, if any are watching this, are saying, oh my God, this is a ton of stuff to try to remember. Here's our movement chart. When we played this stuff, again, I was playing this when I was like 12 and 13. you learned this stuff pretty quickly as you played. You internalized a lot of it, and it really wasn't hard to remember. So at a speed of, and this would be going in reverse 20 miles, 15, okay. So at 10 miles per hour, you get to move one time in phase 6 of the turn. And that would mean moving like that one time. And if you ram somebody, you're going to do 1 die minus 4 damage. Now that damage initially would be soaked up by armor, and then it would start damaging components of the car. You could see if we take it all the way down to 100 miles per hour, you're moving in every single phase, and you're doing, I believe that would be 15 dice of damage if you ram something. And I'd have to look. Okay. Yeah, so the ram column shows how many dice of damage are taken by a vehicle involved in a ram or other collision. So I believe you would be doing that much damage to your car as well as whatever you hit. So you don't necessarily want to just ram into things right and left. So that movement chart tells you when you get to move. And you get rules for acceleration and deceleration, straight line movement, how that works. You get your maneuver rules, which basically you have a handling class. If you're trying a certain kind of maneuver, there's a difficulty to it. And so you reduce your handling class by that difficulty number to get a number on a handling chart. Stuff lower seems to come in clear. So there's handling track, status and modifiers, and your speed comes into it. You get the idea. Basically, you're rolling dice. And if you lose control, then you have a crash. And so you get a bunch of maneuvers here: bend, tight bend, drift, steep drift, swerve, hard swerve, pivot, deceleration, evening out. And here's the one that made a huge impression on me as a kid. And that is the bootlegger reverse. The old moonshiner's trick whereby a car uses a controlled skid to reverse its direction. It works, but it's dangerous. Now, the reason that stuck with me was because I was a big fan of the Dukes of Hazzard. And the Dukes of Hazzard, and of course a lot of those shows, Smokey the Bandit, do a lot of those bootleggers. And all of a sudden, I knew what that was called. And I thought that was pretty cool. You get Hazzard's road conditions, crashes and collisions. And of course, what everybody's looking for, combat, which essentially you need to have line of sight on the other car. You use your weapons. There's a roll you have to make to hit, and then you get to do damage. And they go through and tell you how it works. Here's like an idea of, front weapons. You can figure out what your line of sight is. And then damage, like I said, is absorbed first by armor, and then by, the weapon systems, other systems in the car, eventually by the driver. People can get out of the cars if they have to and make a run for it. You get smoke screens, you get paint screens, you get oil slicks, a little bit like Mario Kart. Overall, I think you get the idea. Now, I had a pretty good amount of fun with this game with friends when I was a kid. We played it every once in a while. But you know what? I probably did more than anything was design my own cars. You do get rules for that. Prices, weight, spaces, etc. And I believe one of these little dudes, maybe it's on the other side of here. Yeah. Here you can see there's your speed track, your handling track, and your little character sheet for your car, so to speak. And this is one that I was making up. Vehicle was called Gigantus. Driver was me. Left armor, here's the tire armor, etc. Size, RV, weight, I can't read it, I think 1,000 pounds. Chassis, extra heavy suspension. Anyways, kind of like, where in Traveler, part of the fun is rolling up characters. In Car Wars, you could waste a lot of time just creating cars, arming them, armoring them, etc., and then never actually ending up taking them out on a track and having an auto duel. So there we go. First published, I believe, in 1981. Yes. This is the third edition revised from 1983. Car Wars, a very fun war game from Steve Jackson Games, who made a lot of great stuff back in the day. No doubt about that. Played a lot of this with my friends when I was a kid. Hey, how about you? Is this one that you remember? One that you love? One you would like to get back into playing? Let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about the game, I'd be happy to answer them as well. It's been a long time since I got to play, I must say, and it was fun opening this thing up and looking at it. And a little sad, too, to see that peeling of the sticker that I have got to figure out a way to repair, because I'd like this thing to stay viable for a few more years. And apparently that guy on the cover here, or the back cover, is, it says it here, special acknowledgement goes to David Kong Heiligman, winner of the first playtest tourney, for his help and comments. That's Kong on the back cover. So there's the first winner of a tourney for Car Wars back in the playtesting phase. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this little show and tell of an old war game, Car Wars, please hit like. Maybe think of subscribing. I review various games, board games and role-playing games, and a lot of other pop culture on this channel. Maybe share with a friend. Until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Play a little Car Wars. And I will see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.